Hey, welcome back to the SBP Podcast Mobile Filmmaking. I'm your host, Susie Botello, and you're listening to episode 180.
We are Fade into Film.
Hey guys, we are back and I'm really excited because all three of us are here, the three amigos for the Fade into Film show.
Hey!
Woo!
So we got Ryan McDonald.
Hey, everybody else.
We got Joey Min.
Hello.
We're here, Joey.
Yeah.
And we have Levi Austin Morris.
Hey.
We were just having a little talk about the show that we're going to put on for you at the film festival, where we're going to record a live, well, it's going to be live for everybody that's attending, live recording of the Fade into Film show. Are you guys excited for that?
Yes.
Now, I know that Ryan and Levi have met before at our film festival, but Joey hasn't met any of us.
Yes.
He doesn't know what he's getting into.
I don't. You thought about it, and I was like, why am I?
Why am I doing
Subjecting yourself to this.
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of fun. And you know what? Let's just get right into it. Speaking of that, Joey,
Yes.
we'll start with you today.
Start with me.
To share. Yes, we're going to start with you. The fire starter. Joey,
Yes.
you're going to perform. No, you're not. You're going to present. You're going to present your no budget Zorro film, the full version.
Yes.
At the film festival during a presentation and workshop where you're going to teach people how to do action filmmaking. Why don't you share a little bit about that, and then at some point also share with listeners how they can subscribe to your tutorials online as well.
Yeah. So the thing is, even in film school, I've noticed that action filmmaking isn't really a genre that is taught in film school. I mean, I think, while the basis of filmmaking is there, everybody knows, your shot, reaction shot, and, reverse shot or whatever. But action filmmaking has its nuances. And, now with Marvel doing a lot of, superhero films and whatnot, and action cinema in Hollywood has progressed a lot since, say, Jason Bourne, right? All the shaky cam that people couldn't see anything. I think, in retrospect, that actually means something. But anyways, that'll be another topic. But the thing is now, now you can see the action when people do it. So it's very much like old Hong Kong films and whatnot, where it's, you have your camera wide enough to see the action without it shaking. So it doesn't, it's not just a bunch of montages and have the audience themselves put together or whatever's going on, and everything is clear and to be seen. And that's not really a very, how do I say it? It's not something inherent in filmmaking to film action that way. So a lot of, so the thing is, that's why, what we're doing for the festival, I kind of wanted to go through, the different nuances of it is to make, action filmmaking, everything from shot selection, shot composition, shot progression, and all of that stuff. I'm not going to be teaching hey, this is how you do a fight scene or anything like that, because, obviously
right.
You kind of need, other knowledge outside of that. But if we're just talking simply,
We also would need a bigger arena.
yeah, exactly. But if we were to talk about simply just the concept of filming action, there are specific ideas to film it clear for your audience. And obviously, I'm just saying this, everybody that's a filmmaker online, we all sell courses because, we're all struggling. I'm on Top Ramen and Spam at the moment. So,
Yes.
but basically, if you guys want to actually know what we're talking about, well, first off, check out our channel on YouTube. It's Art School Dropouts. Check it out, in all of our socials. And you guys can see what type of action that we do. It's mostly martial arts, but it's everything as well with the types of action. But check it out and see if what we do is something that you guys do like and something that you think you guys can learn from, because we do have tutorial courses at asdofightscenes.com and everything else. You guys check it out, and we kind of teach our method of action filmmaking that, it works for, no budget all the way to, scaling it up, and you could do big budget Hollywood films. It's not the way that Hollywood does it. It's definitely not, but you can scale it up there. And I know because that's what I've been doing for the past year.
You've been doing it.
That's what so definitely check it out if you guys, please, hopefully you guys like what we do. Like I said, again, it's Art School Dropouts on YouTube, and check us out. If you like what we do, please like and subscribe and share with people that might like it.
Yes.
There we go.
That was awesome.
Yeah. That's YouTube, baby. That's the
Yes.
Yes. And you also have a Patreon, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously check out the YouTube first, and everything would be listed there. The support, like the Patreon is for people that actually want to see the behind the scenes. Cause like while we do have our courses, we put a lot of the research materials, I guess, for all of our short films, all of our web series, all of our feature films, everything from the scripts to the storyboards to behind the scenes to the planning. You guys see like our shot list, our calendars, like for those particular projects. So it kind of gives a bigger idea for people who are trying to put together a film. So it's not just action films, just the idea of what we have to do to like not only scheduling, like everything from the creative process all the way to logistics too, because you can't make a movie just by the will and passion of like creativity alone. There's a lot of other stuff in there. Obviously being filmmakers on YouTube, we have to know how to market. Obviously, we have to, show people like, learning how to make trailers and all that stuff for your stuff. Any promotional materials, like an EPK, like electronic promotional kit, right? That you could give to people so they could, show other people, like, just who you guys are, what your project's about, right? And that's the business part. And as a creative going into YouTube, I never really understood all of that until, I started growing my company with my partner Stephanie, and she's the business side, and
Stephanie
Pham, and she basically kind of the creative skill set that I developed, I learned how to also use it as a business side. And it's not, I'm not very much proficient at it. I'm not really good at it because I, obviously like being a creative, but it, that's part of the game now. Like for a lot of indie filmmakers that isn't backed by, a multi-billion-dollar studio, you have to learn how to market yourself. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's really good about YouTube. You kind of learn how to do that too.
Well, Joey, you guys are going to be there throughout the entire film festival for the 3 days. Mm-hmm. And I one of the reasons why I think this is great that we're sharing this with people is because our listeners some of you are filmmakers that are attending the film festival. These are some pointers on some of the topics that you might want to approach Joey on. And Joey is also interested in your own filmmaking experience with iPhones and Android phones and how you do that, right, Joey?
Yeah, of course. Because like basically, I think you could learn filmmaking in every different aspect of filmmaking, right? Like I think what Ryan says, like there is no rules when it comes to creativity, right? And sometimes you might have to do things that you might not know, or you're unsure about, or you might not even like, but there's always something to learn. And I think I never really considered mobile filmmaking before as like a good skill set to develop, but now it's one of my favorite tools that I use for our channel, and even just for practice, really, because like I think that in the advent of digital, or like just the phones, really smartphones, everybody's recording something now, like like the little tiny skills that people do on TikTok, however weird it is, right? Like everyone's doing transition, like, oh cool, like you learned like 0.1% of filmmaking, but then that could be a start, right? That could be the gateway into like actually learning the very vast creative world of filmmaking, and I think that's really awesome.
And I mean, building off of what you're saying, I was on a commercial shoot the last 2 days, and even on that professional set, to set up shots, everybody pulls out their cell phone to sort of get the frame, and then they get the camera. It's like
ready,
an amazing
tool, right? Because with everything now, and you guys were talking about like different apps and stuff, like I guess before, with all of the light meters and stuff, you could really there's like apps on the phone that you could just do that. You could just learn how to frame it. Like, even if you're not like even if you're just the director, but you're not as knowledgeable as your DP, you like shoot something on a, on your phone. It's like, hey, I kind of want,
and then show them like, hey, exactly,
and like that's kind of like, that's what we were doing. It's like I'm trying to explain, like, oh, maybe I kind of want this to be like a 50, but like at this angle and this type of shot. They were like, yeah, we got it, and then like 30 people start moving. I'm like, holy shit, that's awesome, But
yeah, it's pretty amazing all the different ways that you can use it. And traditional filmmakers use it for things like the slate, and they use it for framing shots, testing. I mean, even as a location scout,
the phone is amazing.
Yeah.
It's like it really is for what it is. For like mobile filmmaking is, you have everything you need with the phone, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's awesome. Like, you're right. Like you locate, you could scout out locations all the way to like slating. That's like insane, because I use my iPad as a slate. So
light meter, there's apps for using it as a light meter as well.
Yeah
For lighting. I do want to bring up, thanks for bringing up the apps, because I want to bring up we'll call this our little break before we talk to Ryan. Blackmagic Camera App just came out yesterday, April 9th. We're recording this on the 10th. April 9th, with a big update. And two of the most really cool features on the new update is that your ability to do rack focus and audio monitoring with headphones. Now, the app already has, audio meters, so you can visually check that way, but it's a pretty big update. And in case you haven't heard about it, or in case you're like me, who puts the camera, the app, for the iPhone, I put it in like another screen, so I'm not constantly looking at you got a new update for this app and for that app.
Yeah.
And so just in case, you guys go ahead and update to it. Now, this works on all iPhones, and one of the things that I'm trying to convince Blackmagic, the Blackmagic design company, I don't think they realize yet how big this community is of mobile filmmakers, and how it's beyond iPhone. And I'm trying to convince them to go ahead and make an Android version. And
sure.
I know that sounds crazy. Like, no, they're not going to do that. Of course, they're not going to do that. But I think that if enough of you, if you're listening to this, reach out to them and just keep pushing. Sometimes it just takes a lot of hands pushing something instead of one big hand, which doesn't really exist, right? To keep pushing them and saying, look, we want you to do that. My motive, I'm an iPhone person, but as you know, in our film festival, we accept film shot with any phone, right? Including Android phones. And I think it'd be a really good idea for them to do that, because we all know, I feel you, the community of mobile filmmakers with I don't want to call it drama, but with the dropout really of Filmic Pro and their team from Filmic Pro. The Blackmagic Camera App is completely free, right? But it's a huge company. They're not, one-on-ones like Filmic Pro was, but like their team. And so I can see, and I know that for many years, I mean, they were pioneers, and I feel the stress level of people saying, we worked so much with Filmic Pro. Yeah, it's hard, right, Levi? Like,
oh, I am bitter. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, to have this alternative, it shouldn't just be, I mean, we can say should, right? But I think they just need a push to know, like, hey,
they need to know that there's a demand for it.
Yes. A larger demand than just iPhones, you know? And because to me, the entire community is important for this. I just want everybody to have an equal arena. I'm going to bring up a few other things that the camera app does, just Blackmagic, right? Just so that some of you who never even heard of it before realize this. Now, first of all, it's free, 100%. And if you're worried about, but they're going to do, no, I don't want you to worry about that. I had this conversation with Aunt Pruitt, who is very much involved with Da Vinci as a company, and he explained this. Basically, they make, so they have the Blackmagic camera, right? Not the camera app.
Yeah.
The 6K or whatever that is, right? They make money off of that.
Yeah.
They have an entire system, kind of like Apple does. So they can give stuff away free. That's pretty awesome. And they do it forever, like DaVinci Resolve. That's a free editor.
I did not realize that was Blackmagic.
Yep. Blackmagic Design does that.
Okay.
And so by knowing this, traditionally, they don't tend to say, here's something free. Because what happens is, by doing this with the camera app, they're giving it to you free, but now you're entering into their own world. One of the things that they have, one of the features, is that you can upload your video clips to the cloud, to their cloud, to the Blackmagic cloud, for an editor, and you can literally chat with that editor from within the app.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so the editor gets the footage, right? And he's looking at it and says, you know what, that one's not going to work. You can shoot, we'll reshoot this other scene. Right there, on the spot, on location. Now, normally, if you're shooting a traditional film, you would text or call or whatever, right? You can have that conversation. But if you're using the film, it's easier to just do it right within the app, right into the cloud, and you can have that dialogue with your editor. And I think that's a time saver, and that's also very helpful. And then you can use the DaVinci Resolve. The DaVinci Resolve has a lot of features for its free version, and then if you want more, then you pay for that.
Yeah.
So they also have, they support now, if you have the 15 Pro or the 15 Pro Max, you get that log capture on your iPhone camera. So they support that in the Blackmagic app. They also support anamorphic lens desqueezing. You can use LUTs. As you know already, the 15 Pro has the USB-C port so that you can record in ProRes to an external hard drive through that. And it also has an ability so you can, it's HDMI out, so you can use a monitor through an HDMI.
That's cool.
Got to get a dongle for that. And it has Bluetooth accessories that you can also connect to that. It's got a lot of features. I just wanted everybody to know that you should update it and play around with it. I'm on Threads earlier today. I shared a couple of YouTube videos that give you guys some basics, and one of them shares the new features with mainly with rack focus. So anyway, so that's that.
That's exciting though. Like those are all things that I really enjoyed playing with on Filmic Pro. So like to know that like you can rack focus and stuff is
and it's 3-point.
Yeah,
like that's 2.
Yeah, I think that's very exciting. And we'll probably, I already had downloaded that app once I heard about it and looked around a little bit and was excited by the potential with it. So yeah, I think that makes me even
and
more
now there
excited
are more tutorials out there than there were before. When it first came out.
I think I've just been butthurt because I didn't want to relearn an entire new app. But
right. It's pretty simple though compared to.
Yeah, and I feel like once you know how to shoot, you know how to shoot.
Right. Yeah. Once you know how to tell a story. No, I'm just kidding. Hey Ryan.
Yeah.
Let's talk about screenwriting for mobile phones for both features and short films.
Well, so before we jumped on, you may have heard Joey said that my philosophy with film has always been that the only rule in film, and I say this, let me set it up a little bit better, is the a lot of times there are other filmmakers who will say, well, you can't do that and you can't do this because there are rules, like like maybe the hero has to live or something like that. And I've always kind of thought my philosophy is that the only rule in film is that there are no rules. And that everything is completely up in the air as far as what you want to do. I've seen movies by Lars von Trier where like some of the continuity isn't even the same in the editing from where a character is sitting, and then the next shot they're suddenly standing and things like that. And I really don't think he cares at all about that.
No, no, he definitely does not.
I don't think he would care if someone.
I think he'd tell somebody to F off if they brought it up.
And in my film, my feature film, Married and Loving It, I did a thing where I had different actors playing the same characters. And I got that from a Luis Buñuel film called The Obscure Object of My Desire, I mean. And he had, the rumor is that the actress had been fired after they'd shot half a movie. I think, being that he was more of a surrealist, that it's purposeful. But there's the main female character in the movie is played by two different actresses, and it changes randomly, like without really rhyme or reason. There's not one that's sweeter or more angry than the other. So there kind of are no rules. Having said that, when it comes to screenplays, I go, well, there are some rules here. There's a reason why it's formatted in certain ways. And so, if you've never written a screenplay before, then you certainly need to, there are like the Idiot's Guides of Screenwriting books. There's obviously YouTube videos on it. So I won't go down everything, but I mean, it was because from where my training came from, I started writing screenplays when I was, in junior high, and then I went through film school. And so I kind of got drilled in my head that there's a particular format to screenplays, and that format's important, mainly because the next thing you're going to be doing as you're shooting on a mobile phone, one has to assume that you're obviously doing this in a low budget. So understanding your formatting helps you understand your budget as well. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't properly formatted your screenplay, you could be sitting with 80 pages, but it turns out to be a 120-minute movie. And you didn't anticipate that because you were measuring out how many pages you were going to shoot in a single day. And it turns out you're way off. And then next thing you know, you've exhausted the days that you already had planned on, and now you need additional days, and everything is costing money at that point. I mean, it's money.
Because 1 minute per page is the standard.
Yeah, the standard is basically 1 minute.
I don't even buy that myself, just because sometimes, if it's an action sequence, that's going to take longer than,
And you have to, and that's where it's kind of like you have to kind of like properly space it a little bit. And I think, let's see, so my script, I believe, for Married and Loving It was about 95 pages. I think the movie came out in 93 minutes. So it's fairly close. My latest ancient evil horror film, I think it was a 7-page script, and it's about 7 minutes. So depending on how you play it, I've always seen that it kind of finds itself. But so the formatting is very important, and understanding how to format, because again, you're shooting on a phone. Now, some other things that are the Ryan McDonald things to consider are that whatever you're writing, and you're shooting on a phone, and that you're doing it in low budget, I would always suggest not to write something that you cannot film, like a bus explosion. Mm-hmm. If you don't know how to do it, as far as like a bus explosion, the Mission Impossible, jump off a mountain with a motorcycle, don't like.
Oh, but why not?
Yeah. Or in the age of it where everybody, because we have so many Marvel films and so many people are inspired for those, and so they want to make something like that. If you don't know how to do the CGI, or if you don't have somebody who's really good at CGI, I would not plan on that. And so, an example being, with Married and Loving It, it was I knew that I was going to make a low budget movie. There's a reason why it's set as a talking heads film all in one house. It's because I knew I had a house, and I knew I could shoot in the house. And what I couldn't add was the bus explosion, things like that. So we so that's kind of but then at the same time, like, don't limit yourself, but use your limitations to some kind of advantage. Or like, if you've ever tried a practice of writing something, but it has to be within a certain page count. So those are some things that we did when I was going through film school. Was we were told you have to write a screenplay in 3 pages, and it can't be 4, it's 3. And then the next one was like, you can write a screenplay, it has to be 6 pages. And again, it can't be 7 and it can't be 5, it has to be 6. And so you kind of, through that practice, and you find a way to kind of skinny things up a little bit. And 2 years ago when I went to the International Mobile Film Festival, and I did a workshop where we discussed
Our film festival. Sorry.
I did a workshop and I challenged everybody to do the practice of writing a short story, but in 55 words, and not 56 and not 54, but 55. And the idea is, can you tell a story in that type of limitation? And I think that it's a good practice for any writer, but especially if you're a beginning writer, start there and find out that kind of story, because this is also Ryan's philosophy of things. So take it as you please. I can't stand a 40-minute short film. Like I can't like 20, cool.
40 minutes is considered a feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a novella film at that point.
I'm like 40 minutes. I'm like you should have just gone to 60, or it's like you should have, because somewhere in there, in my opinion,
Because it's on the edge.
somewhere
right?
in there, something should have like dropped off to make it to tell that story in 20 minutes.
Yeah, you can either trim it down or
sit back and brainstorm and get this thing to 70 pages, so you're at a feature length.
I agree.
That's just me. So when we're speaking of writing the screenplays, again, you know where you're at. If you have a 20-page script, it's 20 minutes. If you've formatted everything correctly. If you have a 70-page script, you're about 70 minutes.
And to build off of what you're saying with the 40-minute, like you're going to have a hard time in festivals with that. You're going to have a hard time every step of the way. Distribution, anything. Like, you're going to have a hard time because 40 minutes, like, festivals are, they want to fit as many good films in as they can, and it's a 40-minute is a hard sell.
And when it comes to distribution, 89 to 90 minutes is the standard that'll get you.
Yeah, and so I mean, when years ago I there was times where I've made short films that I knew were 3 minutes long, and that the intention there was like, because if my philosophy is if a festival has maybe a 60-minute window that they're going to run shorts, because not every festival is 3 days. Ours, Susie's is a 3-day festival. Some, however, are not. And so if they only have an hour and you have a 40-minute short film, it better be a hell of a short film. Like, you're just gonna, so we're talking like Tenet, hell of a short film. Which is not a short movie, but by any standard, but it's just really complex.
It also wasn't a very good
yes,
movie.
it's a great film. I love that movie. I don't even care that you...
No, I said it wasn't, but anyway.
Well, we are at odds on that. I don't even care that you can't even hear the dialogue half the time. I don't like it. Doesn't bother me. But I'm a sucker for time travel, so that's another thing.
Sure.
But if so a 3-minute movie though, like a 3-minute short, and they have an hour block, like you could probably get in with a 3-minute, like you could jump right in. So those are the things that my suggestion of things to consider when sitting down to write your screenplay and telling your story. And then I think I'm almost certain that every one of us sitting here has had some kind of negative comment said about their art on YouTube. I know I've been called adult. I didn't even know what that meant. I had to look it up because that person was smarter
An
than
adult?
Because you're an adult.
Exactly.
How dare you?
Yeah. And so I've had people like even say, just kill yourself. Funny. Like, and one of the things that when we went, and when we went through art school, is I had an art class, the professor was like, hey, we're going to do art and then we're going to showcase it. And we're going to go painting to painting. We're going to sit there and judge like what's working, what's not working. And then you'll do it again. And I was like, and if you can't handle the criticism, like this is not the game to be in anymore.
Mm-hmm. All instructors, especially in art classes and filmmaking and media and all that stuff, do tell you that. Like you have to accept that. Yeah. And you know,
so
your art's not going to be for everyone.
Yeah,
and it should.
Oh yeah,
it's subjective.
And there were reviews about my feature film where people did not like it or enjoy it. And their comments at times, there was one person, their comment was it's got more F words than a Quentin Tarantino movie. And I took that soundbite and put it on the poster because I thought that even though they technically didn't even like the movie, but what they said was really cool. So I was like, okay, cool. So the next thing is,
but on the same token, the one thing that I do want to say, just to kind of pitch in really quick, that you don't have to like every film that's good.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can say that as, for the film festival, like we can select some really good films that we personally are not very, don't like, as long as we keep our personal likes and stuff like that out of the way. You can also admit this was made very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you should be able to learn like from any movie that you might not like. Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, again, Ryan's philosophy of things. I've always felt as well, like if you like a director, I'll watch everything that they've done. And so there might be like, oh, well, that was the one that nobody liked. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm a fan of Tony Scott, so I'm kind of a fan of that movie too, in that sense. And so, but the next thing I was going to move on to as far as screenplays is what I was going to say is that as far as criticism goes, is like now you have your screenplay, you've got to show it to people, and they can be your friends and such, but just be prepared. But you need to sit down with a writing group or somebody, and you kind of need to hear what's wrong with your child, in a sense, and. But do not.
And not be afraid to kill your darlings if it's not working.
Yeah. And do not take everyone's individual comments, and make changes unless it's like, it really is like an aha idea. And whatever they said gave you like, oh my God, that's right. But because some people might say, well, that character shouldn't die. And somebody else will say, well, they should certainly die. But if the majority of the people that you're sitting with have said that character should die, then you need to consider that character should die, because you should consider it, because it seems as though that's the consensus with everyone that you've shown it to, is that it has a weak opening or something like that. So you kind of want to keep those pieces in mind, because not everything that is written is gold, but at the same time it's also not trash either. And I'm working with my daughters right now who are making their own short films. And, sometimes they'll be like, well, I have to rewrite it. They'll look at it and they'll be like, I have to rewrite it. And I'm like, that's the process, though. Process of rewriting.
Yep.
And recently I've been working on a Wolfman versus Franken-Junk movie, feature film, screenplay. And I've been stuck for a while. I've been so stuck on writer's block because I'm 80 pages in, but I know I haven't covered what I wanted to cover. So I know that it's way too inflated with something, and it's got to go, and I don't know what it is. So I printed it out, and I asked my filmmaker wife, who's also a screenplay writer as well. I was like, you read it, you let me know what. It's like, it sucks, and something's not working, and narratively it's not working. And as soon as she started reading it, and I started realizing, I was like, oh, you know what needs to happen? This needs to move here, that needs to move there. And simply by just me handing it to her, I started then thinking like, that's what's wrong. It was almost like I needed a soundboard to repeat it back. And so now I'm like back in the game with it again. So this is like an evolving thing. You're going to write it and you're going to hate whatever you wrote. There's moments like, maybe you're having like a glass of wine or whatever, you're typing away, you close the laptop and you're like, oh my God, yes, I did it. And then later, the next morning you go, ooh, I did not do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And so, you get to that.
One more thing, Ryan.
Okay.
Another feature of being able to, you remember Stephen Palmer Peterson, the screenwriter that was in our Zoom, conference thing that we did that year. Mm-hmm. So he writes all sorts of screenplays and for different films and things like that. Well, definitely not things like that, but films. Sorry, guys. But one of the things that he said, and I'll never forget it, is when you write a mobile film, a screenplay for a mobile film to shoot with a phone, it's gonna get made. One of the aspects of that is that you can also, like, yes, an exploding airplane or things like that are a little out of league for that. for the budget, but also knowing specifically with mobile that you can get away with guerrilla filmmaking for some locations and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And so consider that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked about that before on this podcast. That it's easier to kind of be downtown without a permit shooting because it's so like low key, and so many people have their phones out for other things. And so kind of nobody would really quite know that that's what you're doing.
It's inconspicuous.
Yeah, so long as, and there's other challenges, dialogue and things like that, how you're going to record that, but swipe that to the side. Like, but you can basically you can shoot, parking lots, things like that. And otherwise people wouldn't really notice it. Now when you're hefting out a big camera, things like that, that's when you start getting that, like, are you guys shooting a movie kind of thing. That has happened to me as well.
One tip about dialogue. You can give iPhones or even the earpods to people that have the microphones, and they can record their own dialogue basically while they're moving around. Yeah. Nobody notices because there's no external microphone, boom mic, or anything like that.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. I'm done interrupting. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I'll wrap up my discussion on writing for mobile film. I think for me the main point was just really you already know that what you're shooting is going to be low budget. So just keep it within the realm of what your budget and your ability is. If you have the budget to blow up a bus, blow it up and shoot it on a phone. I don't care, but don't in a sense assume that you're going to be able to have a character fly if you haven't really worked that out quite yet. Now, in the Hollywood world, they greenlight Superman without really understanding how they're going to make that technology work, but they have the money to pay people to like find that out. And here we are in the indie world shooting, $300 movies, short films, things like that, it may be out of your savings.
Yeah, like I remember getting advice like, oh yeah, just write whatever, like, just write however big you want to do it. I mean, you could do that, but cutting it down to something that's within my resources is so much harder than actually taking account of what resources I have first,
Yeah. I mean, like an example might be like El Mariachi. Like Rob Rodriguez he found out that, so they have an Uzi, but he was able to get an Uzi from like the Mexican police. They shot in Mexico. They were able to borrow one, and then what he found out is that like it only once it fires, because it fires a blank, so it doesn't rack enough to like pop the next one to like chamber the next blank. So he had to think on the fly, and he basically just shot the blanks going off and one by one, and then just in the edit cut it so it just went like that. But he probably also figured that out from another time when all the other things that he was editing. Excuse me, I have to smack this animal that's in my room right now. I knew it. Like he was going to do it when anyways, but so he probably figured that out by the time he did El Mariachi, like he'd shot several short films, and so he kind of already knew some of those tricks. And there's a lot of things by the time we made Married and Loving It, like for me, I was always saying to myself that the short films were like a practice to get to the feature film. And so a lot of tricks that I pulled in the feature film, my opening scene is kind of like, it's like a Birdman one take shot. Or by that I mean it's actually 4 shots, but there's a hidden edit. So I knew I wanted to do that, but I'd done a short film that was all one shot. And some of the other things that we do, so if you know the tricks, if you know how to do the magic tricks, then sure, write it in. But if you're not sure and you don't know where the team is, like you pick something. Some of my short films in the early days, I used to be where it would be characters walk into a room, they argue, by the end of the scene they're now divorced, or they've decided they're going to get a divorce, and I would have people complain to me that they didn't think that was a story, and I thought that those were stories, even though it was 8 minutes, because to me it was like in that 8 minutes you found out how they started, why they're upset, and what's basically going to break them up, and they're kind of hashing out all their backstory, which is part of it too.
Okay. Yeah, and I just want to say that it's one of the things that we pointed out in the last episode about the perception of the story, how sometimes it doesn't really match between the filmmaker and the audience. Levi,
Yes.
I would love for you to share the storytelling in feature films like your most fantastic Paralysis film versus the short films like your most fantastic, my favorite, The Tea.
That's funny.
Even though you can pick and choose how many you want.
Yeah.
But I love to get your perspective on the storytelling differences between the two.
I mean, I think it's a lot. I feel like Ryan touched on a lot of things that applies to this moment or this topic as well. But I think the main thing with a short film is you need a pretty simple idea. Like it tends to be not very complicated, not that many characters, and it's like you really want to just. I mean, I guess I struggle with this just because for me as a filmmaker, I always am just like, I'm going to write the script and it's going to be the length that it needs to be. So whatever story is inside of you that you need to tell, you just need to get that story out, and however long it's going to be, it's going to be. But with that, like going off of what Ryan was saying, like if it's 40 minutes, or 40 pages or something, I think that it's important to really like figure out what is the meat of the story that you're trying to tell, and can you do it in a shorter way if it's 40 pages, whereas if it's like the first draft of Paralysis for me was 58 pages, and I knew that it wasn't done. And so similar to Ryan, I have a peer editing group where we come together, we read the scripts out loud, people give notes, and it's sort of like I choose the notes that I think support the story that I'm trying to tell, and I discard the notes that I think don't support the story that I'm trying to tell.
I think there's also in the storytelling part of between the two is how you can make the point of the story, right, in a shorter format as opposed to storytelling in a longer format, because you can unravel the story and get more right.
If you can tell the story in a short format, I think like do the best short film you can, For me, The Tea was actually inspired by a couple of things. I had just seen The Favorite and I loved that movie. So I wanted something that felt sort of that energy. But also I grew up, I was a theater major, and my history is in drama and plays, and it was there was a play that I loved that was Tartuffe by Moliere. It's like a restoration comedy from like hundreds of years ago, and there were characters that I loved, and so I took some of those characters and then I created my own world around those characters, my own sort of like relationships and whatnot, and so it's like for me that was kind of an exercise more than anything. I knew it was going to be a short film, but I also was like, ooh, like these two things inspired me. What can I create from this, and so whereas Paralysis was very much I was going and this is for myself, like the storytelling tends to come from my own experiences and my own need to process whatever I'm dealing with. So Paralysis was very much me processing my feelings, my deep isolation feelings during the COVID lockdown, as well as I had just started therapy and I was dealing with sort of feelings from trauma from childhood that I was like, oh, I need to process this. And so, I think I don't know if I'm answering this well. But I just think that, the story knows the length that it's supposed to be. And I feel like that's an awful answer, but it really does. I
just think it's about developing. The development and the structure.
Oh, well, I mean, with that, for sure. Yeah. Like for myself, my way of doing a script is I sit down and I write an outline before I go into writing my scripts. And I think that really informs me the length that the project is going to be. But the outline is barely an outline, it's just like, okay, like this is it's really one scene.
It's like a one act play, basically.
It really is. Yeah. Whereas like when you sit down to write a feature, like it's a lot to think about. And you make the arc clear for yourself because you're writing the script, but also with that process of writing, and I think it's one of the most exciting things is during that process is allowing it to sort of ebb and flow naturally and organically. Like if you have an outline for a feature and then you sit down to start writing and something else inspires you while you're writing, explore that, don't let yourself go off topic too much, but like maybe it'll take you in a new direction and you'll realize, oh, my outline needs to change, or I'm more interested in this aspect of the story,
And I think some stories could you imagine the Titanic being a short 5-minute film?
No,
right?
No, you couldn't do that. Yeah. And same like with sure. I mean, I guess I could have done a short film of paralysis, but it wouldn't have been the story I wanted to tell. Like it was like there was a journey that I wanted to take with that.
So I've tried screenplays in both ways, where I've planned out each scene, and then I'm writing it, and it's like I'm forcing it almost. And and that's what's happening right now with the feature screenplay. Like I said, I actually had planned the whole damn thing out, but I'm at like page 80 and I'm only halfway through that plan. I'm like, this is not working. But then I have other screenplays, features, what I thought were feature ideas. And I get about page 40 or 50 and they just lose steam. And it's like, well, maybe my idea wasn't as big as I thought it was, because I was intending to write a feature, but it's really just a short. And like you said,
do either of you ever start screenplays thinking, I'm going to write a feature, or I'm going to write a short, whatever, and then you have this conundrum, right? And then all of a sudden you just kind of go, I'll put it aside, I'll do my other ones, from other ideas, and later go back to those and say, for some reason, at a different time and a different point, you feel like now you got that story to... Yeah,
I mean, I think... that's kind of happening for me right now, because we've talked a little bit about... Ryan, we've been in kind of a similar journey where we experienced writer's block recently, and we were like, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through this? And currently I have had to put that aside, fortunately, because I am dealing with other things with paralysis that I'm not sure I can actually say yet, but good things. That project is on the side, but since it has been on the side, I constantly am having moments that I'm like, oh, this is what I need to do. So I have like a little notes page on my phone that I quick go in and jot down the ways to fix, or not even fix, but to get past the block that I've been experiencing. And I think even, I mean, I don't want to say, but like even when you finish a film, sometimes like when you finish a rough cut or you finish what you think is the final cut, taking space away from that and then coming back and looking at it can be really enlightening, and you can be like, oh, I can cut 17 minutes. So like, and I'm saying that for paralysis, which is,
you're still, that was the thing, when we were talking about in our one-on-one, remember? And it was like, yes, Susie, I've re-edited the paralysis again, because so you just can't stop.
And I think that's also the thing about being an artist is you're really never done. Like a painting can be finished and 20 years later you can go back into it. Like it's art is about the process, I think, more than anything. Yeah. And art is just it's a living thing that can always change. That's why, a film might be released, but then like a year later the director's cut will be released, and it's because that artist had a story they wanted to tell, and in a specific way,
As a graphics designer, I can tell you the only reason I ever stopped and said, okay, that's the final one, is the deadline.
It's because a deadline? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I went through the entire festival run with paralysis, and I've now cut an additional 5 minutes from the film. So, surprise.
Right? I am not at all surprised.
Yeah.
And you'll probably do more.
No, at this point, I can't.
I know. And you have your own deadline now. that's
Yeah.
giving you the finalized, putting the gun to
Yeah.
your head, so to speak. Joey,
Yes.
you've also made a feature film, although it wasn't shot on a phone,
Yes.
but you've got your filmmaking
yeah.
skills.
Yeah, I've actually
beyond YouTube.
Yeah, well, actually,
Even though
as a
it's
group,
on YouTube,
yeah,
right?
it's on YouTube as a group, and it's on Tubi, it's on Amazon, it's whatever, obviously,
Nice.
right? But before that feature, I actually shot 2 more features, during college years, right? So, and they're terrible films, but I'm very proud of them because I like seeing the mistakes that I did back then and the change.
You completed it.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody that makes a feature film, I think that's like a triumphant victory. No,
Yeah.
the idea of just
Yeah.
making something, that's in your head and you manifest that into reality to something tangible. That's a lot of passion and drive.
Basically, when you write something, you have to know, especially if it's a feature, you're going to be committed to this for a long time. A feature specifically is not something that you're going to whip out very quick. So it's you just have to know that when you write something, it has to be something that you're passionate enough about that you can spend 2 or 3 years working on. And so I think that really can inform the story that you're telling, because you as the filmmaker have to be the champion of that project from beginning to end.
Exactly.
I've been attracted to creating, and I thought it was art, because I'm also an artist, since I was very little, and that gave me the satisfaction of creating things, right?
Yeah.
But I'm very much into creating things. And what you were just saying, Joey, it's the fact that you created something and manifested something from an idea into something real. I mean, just to go to the film festival itself, I guess I could give that example, to going from something that I saw that was going to happen in the future that somebody else was going to do back on 9/11 in 2001. And then going ahead in 2009 and say, well, screw it. If nobody else is going to do it, then I'm going to do it because this is something that's going to happen. I got to make this happen. And now here we are. We're about to have the 13th edition,
13
right?
years later.
More than 13 because I launched it in 2009 in the same month, by the way. It's just ironic. But it took 3 years for me to get a venue and to get people to submit films because the iPhone 4 hadn't come out yet. But anyways, that's a long story. No need to go there. But now here we are in the 13th edition, right? And I have to sometimes, right, because I'm very much in the motion of it constantly, to stop and say, wait a minute. Remember, from my own personal memory of how far this has come, not just the film festival, but this whole notion of making movies on your phone
Yeah.
and to feature films, not just short little films.
Yeah.
Because it started as a 3-minute film festival, basically 1 to 3 minutes. And now we've gone to,
absolutely.
it's evolved that now we have to have a rookie category, a rookie contest, because the level of professionalism in mobile filmmaking, even for short films, that bar has been raised. It's amazing. It's incredible. And to me, that's where I get the satisfaction. That's why I went into graphics design. That's why I enjoyed video production. That's why I enjoy writing. It's a fact of manifesting that. And I'm glad you brought that up, Joey, because that just allowed me to sort of verbalize that.
And even building off of what Joey was saying in regards to I also have another feature film that I did that I jokingly say I don't talk about because it's something that I like. It was a journey. It was an experience. I learned a lot from it. I know the people who worked on it with me actually really enjoy it. I have my own feelings about it. I recognize the things that I needed to grow from that. And when I go back and look at it, it's okay, it was anyway. I'm repeating myself now, but basically what I'm trying to say is don't expect your first thing to be amazing.
Oh yeah,
like
it's the first film
like,
syndrome. That's what I call it.
Yeah, it's always going to be a process. Every project you're going to be getting better and better, and that's kind of the joy of being a filmmaker is the challenge of improving. Like I think, not even just improving, but like there's a fulfilling thing when you create something that resonates with you or resonates with other people. And yeah, so it's like don't expect your first thing.
You can inspire yourself through that.
Yes, you can. Yes,
and I think that's usually what
yeah.
the first film syndrome is. It's like it's that first film that you do that you believe it's going to be like this amazing revolutionary like work that people are gonna just celebrate all around because you finished it. But then when you finish it, you realize like you feel good. But then depending on what type of artist or creator you are, you start seeing where it's like, oh man, I could do that better now. Maybe if I did this, maybe I did that. And I think that's like the beginning of what it is to become a better filmmaker. And
The motivation.
the motivation, because not everybody has that. Some people might be able to create a film, but it's not because they wanted to create a film for a film. They had other reasons that isn't tied to that craft, and then their style never really changes because that's not what they're trying to build up on anyways, right? And I know we all know filmmakers like that. Like we have to.
It's like MGM's like slogan is like art for art's sake.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like film's sake, and I probably have a different experience than you guys because like I've made Married Loving is my first feature film, but prior to that I'd made enough short films I could have had like two other feature films.
Sure.
So like after like 20 short films, it's kind of like, I was like due for the feature.
And
But the experience that you're gaining, though, all of you, is and as I said this in a few episodes ago, experience makes the expert.
Yeah, I wouldn't, even though I don't talk about that other film, I would not change that experience for anything because I am a much better artist because of it.
Oh, definitely. Same here. I rarely, I guess I would watch it like once every 5 years and I'd be like, oh God, that's gross. Then I laugh.
I think I'm coming up on the point where I need to watch the first one. Yeah.
That's the thing. I think
that your timing would be good to do it now too.
That's funny.
Well, we're wrapping up the show now. Any last? I'm doing it again. I'm sorry, guys. I can't stop doing that. Any last words?
I've always said this. I before when I thought about it, when it comes to filmmaking, I had this idea, like the whole quality over quantity. But now as I grow older and I've done a lot, I realize that you can get quality through quantity.
Yeah.
So I guess now I'm changing quality through quantity. There we go.
I agree.
Yeah. I agree too.
Just create because you'll constantly learn from everything that you do.
And like don't get hung up on like one mistake, like, oh, I could have made this like 2-minute film better. Like then do a better next film. Don't
you give yourself the chances that you take. It's a choice.
Well, there was a friend of mine, another filmmaking friend of mine, said a quote to me, and it wasn't his quote, and I don't know who he pulled it from, but it was like perfection is like the evil to art, something along those lines. And I was like, because I know so many people who are like, no, it's got to be perfect, it can't happen until it's like perfect. And it's like it's never gonna be perfect in your eyes. So all it can do is get as close as it can. And then at some point, like,
got it.
So what I'm taking from this is I should stop touching paralysis.
Yes.
stop touching
It's
that.
time to let it go.
And my final last words for Levi is good luck with that.
Let's
I
film
think
something new, man.
once you get rolling on your new film, Levi, you'll be able to kind of.
I'm actually very excited to be done with paralysis.
Yes. And Paralysis will live forever in our film festival as the best film in 2023. Oh my gosh. It just the reaction was awesome.
It was a cool experience. Yeah.
Yes. Well, on that note, on all notes, on every note, get out there and inspire yourselves by making films. Use your phones and say goodbye to our listeners, guys.
Bye.
We'll see you guys next live in person.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's right.
So
Thank
See
you.
you at the festival.